Odu Village, deep in the heart of Oyo State in Nigeria, was known for its ancient traditions and the tales passed down from generation to generation. It was a small, peaceful village nestled next to a dense forest, a forest that had always been the subject of fearful whispers. No one dared venture inside that forest after dark, for it was said to be home to restless spirits. The villagers believed these spirits belonged to those who had wronged the forest's ancient guardian, Abeni, the woman who once lived at its edge. Many years ago, Abeni had been accused of witchcraft. She was a quiet woman, beautiful and mysterious, and the villagers feared what they did not understand. When crops withered or animals died, they blamed Abeni. Soon, even illness that swept through the village was attributed to her. If anyone died, they would blame Abeni. If a woman is pregnant and loses her child in the process of childbirth, they would blame Abeni. If anyone falls sick with an incurable disease that nobody has a cure for, they would blame Abeni. If crops withered and if animals died, they would blame Abeni. Every single misfortune and downfall happening in Odu Village were all blamed on Abeni, simply because she isolated herself from the villagers and lived alone in the dark forest. The whole village decided to send 2 village guards to capture her one night under a full moon. They tied her to a sacred tree deep in the forest and left her there, convinced that abandoning her to the spirits would cleanse the village of their alleged evil. But Abeni had not been the cause of their suffering. As she lay down beneath the sacred tree, she called upon the forest spirits. She called upon them not to curse the village, but to seek justice for her wrongful death. The spirits heard her cry, and instead of taking her soul, they merged with it, transforming her into the forest's guardian. From that night on, strange events began to unfold in Odu Village. The first signs were subtle whispers in the wind, shadows moving at the edge of the forest. But soon, the livestock began dying again. Crops failed, and children started disappearing without a trace. The villagers, terrified, believed that Abeni's spirits had returned to curse them for their cruelty. No one dared venture into the forest, for it was said her spirit walked among the trees, her eyes glowing red, seeking vengeance on those who had wronged her. Years passed, and the story of Abeni became legend. Children were told not to go near the forest, and adults avoided it at all costs. Yet the fear remained. The village suffered in silence, unable to understand why the curse persisted. This went on for several years. Everybody was trying to look for a way to survive. The way of life of people in Odu Village became very unbearable and very hard to live. But despite all this, everybody was warned not to go close to that forest and to avoid it at all costs. The villagers all kept living like this until a girl named Ada came into the picture. Ada was an orphan from a distant village, taken in by an old woman in Odu. She was different from her peers, braver, more curious. And unlike the others, Ada didn't believe in the stories of the forest spirits. She always felt like the story wasn't true, and she would like to find out if it is true or not. Ada was a very inquisitive girl and very kind at heart too. She would always offer gifts to the children in the village. Ada would always give them advice and would always teach them little lessons she could teach them. Ada was a very smart child, and every children in the village always looked up to her. Some of them would tell her, Auntie Ada, I would like to be like you when I grow up. Ada would smile and say, thank you very much. I am flattered. But you should always focus on your studies and on your education. One night, after hearing another tale of a child disappearing due to the stories of Abeni, Ada decided to find out the truth for herself. She was determined to find out what exactly the whole story of Abeni is. Ada, a very brave and young courageous woman, decided to go into the forest and find out the whole truth about Abeni. She went into the forest and immediately saw some fireflies. She got carried away, but she remembered why she came into the forest. Ada ventured into the forest, armed with nothing but a small basket of charm the village priest had given her. Ada walked deep into the trees, her heart racing but her resolve unshaken. As she ventured further, the air grew colder and the wind seemed to carry whispers, but Ada pressed on. At the heart of the forest, Ada found a sacred tree where Abeni had been tied. It was a massive tree, its roots twisted like serpents, its bark blackened as if scorched by an ancient fire. Standing before it was the spirit of Abeni. She was beautiful, but her face was etched with sorrow, her eyes glowing softly in the moonlight. Why have you come here, child? Abeni's voice was soft, but it echoed through the trees. I came to find out why you haunt the village, Ada said, her voice trembling. The people say you are angry, but I don't believe you want to hurt us. Abeni's glowing eyes softened as she looked at the young girl, and for the first time in years, she saw something different. Someone who did not come with fear or hatred, but with curiosity and courage. I do not seek vengeance, Abeni said, her voice heavy with sadness. I was wronged, yes, but I never cursed the village. The suffering that plagues your people is not of my doing. Ada listened intently, feeling a strange warmth grow in her chest. Then who is causing the suffering? The land itself has been angry for so many years, Abeni explained. The people forgot to honor the earth, and in their fear, they placed the blame on me. The spirits of the forest are restless, not because of me, but because the balance was broken the night I was left here to die. Ada knew what she had to do. She returned to the village and told the elders what Abeni had revealed. At first, they were skeptical, but the old priest, now frail and burdened with guilt, confirmed Ada's story. He had always known that abandoning Abeni had been wrong, but fear had silenced him all those years ago. With Ada's guidance, the villagers gathered at the edge of the forest. The priest led a ceremony, offering gifts to the spirits of the land. They also offered fruits, water, and prayers. They acknowledged their past mistakes and begged for forgiveness. That night, something extraordinary happened. The wind that had always howled angrily through the trees turned calm, and the shadows that once danced menacingly among the villagers faded. For the first time in years, the air felt peaceful. Abeni appeared once more, her spirit more radiant, no longer bound by sorrow. The balance has been restored, she said. Live in harmony with the land, and it will provide for you once more. The villagers bowed in gratitude, and as they watched, Abeni's spirit faded into the trees, finally at peace. From that day forward, the village of Odu thrived. Crops grew, livestock flourished, and the children were no longer afraid to play at the forest's edge. They had learned to respect the land and the spirits that dwelled within it, and in return, the land gave them prosperity. And every so often, when the wind blew softly through the trees, the villagers swore they could hear Abeni's voice, no longer angry, but singing softly, a guardian of the land, watching over them for eternity. The end.